Howdy folks, welcome back. The Ford E350 cutaway van is back in the shop. I think this is the 4th video now about this truck. Hopefully it's the last one for a while. Last time we worked on it, we found a few small issues, but the big one was the speedometer needle. She bounces all over the place. I attempted to correct that by replacing the PSOM, the programmable speedometer odometer module, in the instrument cluster. I tested the old one on my truck. It didn't work right. I bought a used one, installed it. The problem remained, still had that bouncing needle. I found that there was some rust jacking underneath of the vehicle speed sensor in the rear axle. I cleaned that rust and stuff off and reset the air gap. The problem remained, still have that bouncing needle. There were a few other small issues. We found that the pigtail had been monkeyed with. Somebody's been back there splicing wires and stuff. I replaced the pigtail, the problem remained. I started measuring the air gap using some depth mics, and I kind of stumbled upon the fact that the tone ring inside the axle on the differential carrier was rusted, and I believe it had rusted from the truck sitting for a long time with the tone ring, exposed out of the oil. So this time we have a new tone ring. We're going to attempt to install that inside the differential. We're also going to fix the leaking pinion seal, hopefully at the same time. So let's get to it. All right folks, we're giving the screen recorder one more shot, and I'm chucking this computer in the river. Anyway, as you guys may know, I recently purchased a picoscope, and it's been an absolute game changer for diagnosing problems like this. What you're seeing here on the computer screen is 2 waveform captures. The bottom here is a known good vehicle speed sensor output from my own truck. At the top is the vehicle speed sensor output from the E350 that we're working on. And I think you guys can see the difference. It's pretty obvious. So the known good is very uniform and consistent. The truck we're working on is anything but. So you see what we were seeing before on that Handtech scope. The frequency doesn't seem to change at all. It is reading every tooth on that tone ring, but the amplitude is just all over the map. And you see it kind of has a repeating pattern. So you got one here, and if you back up a screen, I think you'll see the same thing. Yeah, here and here. It's just a repeating pattern, so that must be a really bad spot in that tone ring. And I suspect that what we're seeing here, where there's a bunch of garbage in this section right here, that's the most corroded part of that tone ring. See it right here. So we definitely have an input problem as far as I'm concerned. Now, I received a massive number of comments in the last video about having dirty power or problems with the incoming power. So I took the channels 2 and 3, hooked them up to the incoming power to the PSOM module. That's this nice flat line that you see up here. There's a few little tiny ripples here, but nothing to get excited about. We do not have a problem with the incoming power, or the ground for that matter. We have a problem with the vehicle speed sensor. So that's all I wanted to show you guys. All right guys, one more test, then we're going to stop the electronic nerd out. So I don't know if you can see it, but up there I have back probed into the pigtail for the vehicle speed sensor. I've got a lead hooked up to a function generator. This is an old one made by BK, and this unit right here essentially can produce a wave, and we can set it up to produce a wave that more or less replicates the normal output of the vehicle speed sensor. So you got 3 functions here: a square wave, a triangular wave, or a sine wave. I think we're going to put it up as a sine wave. And then these buttons here control the frequency. So it's a decade style. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, we're going to be in the approximately 1 kilohertz range. And then you can change the amplitude here a little bit. Shouldn't make too much of a difference. There's a few other kind of controls and stuff here. It does some fancy stuff that we don't need to do, like TTL and CMOS and all that crap. Doesn't matter. This thing right here, for all intents and purposes, is a simulator of the sensor. You guys can see all my scope leads still hooked up inside here. There's the Pico over there. I'll leave that stuff so we can confirm this when we get done. Key is on. We are going to turn on the function generator, and it is currently spitting out 1,297 hertz, or pulses per second. And if we come in here and look at the speedometer, you will see that it is rock steady. I guess we could start it up and rule out the alternator ripple or whatever everyone was telling me is a problem. So let's see. There we go. Everybody's happy. So that's it. Let's tear this axle apart. A lot of people have asked me about these drain pans. I believe they're made by Lyle. They don't seem to put their name on it, but I'm pretty sure that's the manufacturer. These are special drain pans just for pulling axles. They're designed to sit inside of the rim on a set of dual wheels for when you have to pull the axle out of a floating axle. Okay, so the caps are off the bearings here. We got to pull this whole carrier out, and then we're going to replace this tone ring. Now you're supposed to have a special tool that hooks in these holes right here and spreads the actual axle housing apart. I don't have that tool, but I think we're going to be okay. Doesn't seem to be too awful tight in here. I'm able to move it anyway. Just got to avoid getting it in our lap. Don't drop it, fella. Whatever you do, don't drop it. Now I'm hoping, I think it's loose now, I'm hoping that since I picked the frame up and let the axle droop, that it's going to have enough room to come out of here without pulling the fuel tank. But I don't know that for sure. Oh, it's gonna be heavy, I know that. Oh, yeah. I will stick this back in here so we don't lose it. Shim on either side. Awesome. Good deal. So the shims set both the preload of the bearings and the kind of side-to-side engagement of the ring gear.
And then we're going to have to pull the pinion out too. Feels pretty good. Hopefully we don't mess up the preload. We don't have to use any new shims. That's the hope anyway. It's only got 40,000 miles on it, so cross your fingers. There it is. Well, it would appear that we actually got the right part. Pretty amazing. Looks to be correct anyway. Okay, I think we'll leave it proud just a little bit, and we'll use the ring gear to push it down. Yeah, I gotta go clean this up though. There's some rust on the back side here, and we don't want that. We don't want the thing to be running out this way either. You know, this way is a problem, but this way also is a problem. Oh boy, I think technically you're supposed to replace these bolts because they have this serrated bottom on them. And I actually have new ones, but these are in good shape, so I'm gonna roll the dice, try to save this guy a little bit of money. Alright, these bolts get torqued to 130 foot-pounds. I'm going to take it over to the vise and do that. You guys will have to use your imagination. You are supposed to use new bolts. Nice thing about Dana's part of Spicer, they make almost all of their service manuals and maintenance manuals available for free on their website. So you can go download the Dana 70 manual. It tells you how to do all your adjustments, all your torque specs, all that stuff. And then it does indeed say to replace these bolts, but like I said, trying to save a little bit of money, so I think we're going to be alright. This isn't exactly a high performance application. Okay, the pinion is out. And the pinion seal is out. Decided to come out the hard way. Pretty rusty. So we got ourselves a new pinion seal right here. We're going to apply a little bit of this Loctite 515 flange sealant. So we'll put this around the outside of the new seal just so we get a good tight seal to the axle housing. This is good stuff, by the way. Okay. Then we've got a socket here. Should work good as a driver. And we have to remember to put the bearing in first before we put the seal in. Very important step. Well, I bought a new yoke, but I don't think we're going to have to use it. So these are the same, except that they take a little bit different strap kit. This one has a style that goes all the way through and has nuts on the back side, whereas this one is tapped and just has bolts. But I think this old one's going to be okay. You can see a little bit of a ring here where the old seal was riding, but there's no groove there. There's nothing that even catches your nail. So I think we'll be okay to use that over. And I went ahead and cleaned up the ears here where the U-joint will ride. Looks pretty good. I'll have to clean up this spot here where this washer sits. and then we'll use a little bit of RTV on both sides of that washer because the oil has a tendency to creep out through these splines. Alright, torque spec on that pinion nut is 260 foot-pounds. I got the big dog out. And kind of a Rube Goldberg setup here to hold the pinion. Let's see if it works. There it is. Yeehaw! Oh, you. There we go. There we go. Okay, if I would have just looked, there's a little D and a little D. Just got to have them in the same orientation. Little D, little D. This one's vertical, this one's horizontal. Can't really screw it up. And these get torqued to 80 foot-pounds. There it is. I don't know. We haven't changed anything, so hopefully it's okay. Got us a new gasket for this axle, stub axle here. Okay, don't go crazy with those. I think the torque spec's only like 45 foot-pounds or something like that. So we'll check them. We'll check the torque once we set it down. Alright folks, I think we're almost done. I got the speed sensor reinstalled, pigtail hooked up. I cobbled together a new strap kit and was able to get the drive line installed. The U-joints are good. I put a little grease in the caps, but otherwise they're fine. Let's see, we got our new seal. We used our old yoke. And a lot of this stuff is kind of one-time use, so you're not supposed to reuse the strap kit, you're not supposed to reuse the nut on the yoke. Everybody does it, but technically speaking, you're supposed to replace that stuff every time it comes apart. We got it topped off with oil. I think we're good to go. Should be able to take this thing for a test drive, and I really hope it works. Finally! Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there's too much glare to see the pico scope, but I can tell you that it looks pretty good. Oh, fantastic. Man, I was really nervous. We've tried so many things and found so many problems. Who would have thought that a tone ring inside of an axle surrounded by oil would have been rusted, corroded, and caused this problem? I certainly did not. Yeah, it's rock steady. Alright, let's see if the cruise will work. Oh yeah. Fantastic. Alright folks, there it is in beautiful high resolution. Right down here is the known good from my truck. Here's what I just captured on our test drive. Fantastic. It's awesome that we can have a, some before and after closure like that. I love it. Well, it just shows you how important this test equipment really is. And I know it's expensive, but I feel like it's worth it, especially, to my own personal mental health. I hate trying to make a guess, based on shoddy information. So the more data that we have, the better. A lot of guys have asked me about these probes, these piercing probes. So I learned about these from Keith DeFazio, the New Level Auto channel. Some of these I have are sold by Fluke. I think the gray ones are Fluke. And the yellow ones are sold by Pomona. I think they're all made by Pomona. I will try to put a link to where you can buy these. I know Zorro sells them. I think that's probably where I bought them. But I think they're available on Amazon or whatever. These are pretty sweet. It's just a tiny, come on, focus. Just a tiny little needle, almost like a hypodermic needle. And you almost don't have to do anything with the wire insulation once you pierce it. I put a little liquid electrical tape on it, but really, it almost seals up and covers the hole in the insulation because it's so small. Well, I don't know. I still find it hard to believe that vehicle speed sensor is so sensitive that this, what looks like a relatively minor amount of corrosion was able to make that speedometer just go crazy. Alright folks, there you go. How to replace the tone ring in your Dana 70 rear axle in order to fix the vehicle speed sensor input for the speedometer and transmission. Really not too bad of a job. I think it took me about 4.5 hours all in to drop the carrier out, replace the tone ring, replace the pinion seal, put everything back together, ship it out the door. And it's back. This poor guy's gonna wear this truck out, just bringing it over to my shop. The owner tells me that it still has some kind of a transmission problem. I didn't have any issues when I drove it, but he said if you make a short trip, let it idle, then make another short trip, that you have problems shifting. It shifts late, shifts hard, drops into neutral. So there's something that we're still missing. I pulled the codes. It has a vehicle speed sensor error code,
And I thought for sure I cleared those out before I sent it home, but maybe I did something wrong, I don't know. Or else we have a problem with communication between the PSOM module and the PCM. That's my suspicion anyway. So let's go for a ride, let's see if we can duplicate the problem. Well, I don't know, seems to be fine. Drives good, shifts good. Steering wheel's a little bit misaligned, but other than that, no issues at all. So I don't know, maybe when it sets that VSS code, it defaults to some kind of open loop strategy or something, I don't know. I thought for sure I cleared that out. Well, I don't see anything wrong with that. Speedometer works great. Well, I guess we'll go park it and we'll try it again later today and see if we can duplicate the problem. This could be real hard to track down if it's intermittent. Alright guys, I thought I would show a little follow-up on that Ford F-150, the one that had all the timing chain problems. The owner, he basically doesn't want to put any money into this truck. It's got a lot of problems that I've been finding as I've been working on it. So he basically told me to put it back together and he's going to run it until it blows. So what we ended up doing is replacing the guides, the tensioner arms, and the hydraulic tensioners. We reused the phasers, the sprockets, the reluctor wheel, and the timing chains. So I don't know how long this is going to last. I did end up having to replace both of the VCT solenoids. The screens were actually broken on both of them. So this is the right side. It's blown out there at the bottom. So I replaced both VCT solenoids. It runs fine, drives fine. It just still has that cam phaser tick at idle when it's warm. And he doesn't want to replace the cam phasers at this time. It's expensive. I think it's almost $500 for those parts. But you can replace them after the fact. There's a special tool for that. Looks like this. They call it a piece of cheese. You jam it down between the guide and the tensioner arm and it holds the chain. And you can take that phaser off from the top side. We did have to replace the timing cover, of course, because of this hole that the tensioner arm tried to cut through it. I just put on a used cover out of a junkyard. And then I had to replace the front main seal and then sleeve the balancer. There's a really pretty deep groove in the balancer. So that's all taken care of. Really unfortunate, though, I found several other problems with the truck while I was working on it. I showed you guys those axle seals were blown out. The radiator has a hole in it. I tried to use my vacuum coolant filling system. It would not pull a vacuum. Anyway, he doesn't want to fix it right now. He's just going to keep an eye on it. And then it's got a broken coil spring. Left front coil spring is broken. What else did I find? It's missing the battery hold down. A couple other minor things. Front brakes are pooched. So anyway, I don't know. He doesn't know what to do with the truck. I told him maybe we could run it until the next oil change, and then we'll cut the filter apart, see how much metal is inside the filter. If we're not seeing a lot of aluminum coming out of those cam bearings, then maybe it'll be okay for a while. But it's definitely a temporary fix, and this is probably not the right way to do it. I told him there would be no warranty or guarantee on any of this work. He just wanted it back on the road to try to get some good out of it so he doesn't lose all of his money. And I can understand that. So thanks guys for watching. See you next time.